everyone. I know it's been a pretty long time since I've done one of these videos, but things got very busy and I got very tired consistently. But the thing is that I've always wanted to come back to this and to teach therapeutic art techniques and things like that. And I just couldn't quite figure out how to do it without becoming overwhelmed by it. So this is what I've decided to do for now until I change it or feel the energy for it. I'm always creating art, and I try to create my own personal artwork that has therapeutic components, and that's very easy to do. You can always add some sort of therapeutic component to whatever kind of thing you're making. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to kind of go through step-by-step processes of what I'm doing right now and not overthink it too much, not do any sort of planning necessarily, and do it when I feel like it. So it's not going to be consistent. I guess you're just going to have to keep an eye on this page. Anyway, so lately I've been working on these masks. I've already made one mask right here and I'm pretty excited about it. So the idea behind the masks is I have been writing a long form text for about 6 years, I think now, and it is just essentially writing about one of the darkest periods of my life that still has an effect on my life, unfortunately, and essentially just kind of going through the step-by-step process of working through what happened, why it happened, why I reacted the way I did, why other people reacted the way they did. And I'm at a specific point of the story where I'm in the throes of trauma, and I don't even know that it's trauma, obviously. I'm just in this horrible, horrible mess of ugly thoughts, just constant self-deprecating thoughts. And I finally was able to name what those thoughts were. And I decided to split up the reactions of what it felt like for me when I was traumatized, and that was 3 different, what I call them, demons. One was rage, and I would say rage is a complex emotion of not just anger, but an uncontrolled feeling of angst and just wanting to take action. But this isn't just rage at other people who have hurt me, but at myself. This is mostly about my feelings towards myself. The second mask that my demon wore was grief, and that's the one I'm going to be making today, the one I'm going to start making today. And grief is also a complex emotion that isn't just about sadness, it's about the feeling of loss. The feeling, and in this case, if I'm talking about myself, it would be a feeling of loss of the person that I was before the incident and before the trauma. So essentially, and then the third mask that my third demon wore is going to be contempt, which a lot of therapists say is the final death and the final nail to a coffin of any sort of relationship. And I'm not just talking about relationship towards other people, I'm talking about relationship towards myself. So contempt, grief, and rage is the 3 complex emotions that my demons wore during that time. Now, the point of these particular demons were the self-deprecating thoughts that you experience, that you tell yourself when you're in the throes of, trauma. And so during the time when I was writing about this experience, I talk about the type of self-deprecating thoughts that I had at the time. But it's really important to acknowledge the negative feelings that we have experienced, but it's also important to try to figure out a way to move past those things. And the point of these particular demons is the things that you're constantly telling yourself that push you down, that keep you in that dark hole, that keep you depressed and traumatized. So we're going to make the masks. I'm going to teach you how I've made these masks, and we're going to add some therapeutic techniques to be able to combat the negative thoughts. So what you're going to need is 2 or 3 different kinds of paper, essentially a paper towel, and newspaper is probably all you're going to need. I also have some regular white printer paper so that I can write down some positive thoughts to combat the feelings of grief. And you can see here I kind of cut them up already into small pieces so that my blender doesn't freak out too much. I bought this kind of smallish blender, smoothie blender from Goodwill for like $7 because I don't want to use my nice blender that I like to make cocktails out of in case it breaks. So you're gonna want what is this called exactly? This thing. I always forget and I think I call it a sieve, but it's not a sieve. Anyway, you're gonna want this thing. You're gonna want a few bowls. You're going to want, this isn't necessary, but I have some spackling. So you're gonna want some spackling if you wanna do it my way, and water, and a pen. Yes, I think that's it. So let's get started. You get a paper towel and you rip it into small pieces so that your blender doesn't freak out. There we go. Take a handful of this regular newspaper and stuff like that. Probably fill it about halfway because with the water it's going to push it down, maybe more than halfway. You can eyeball it and just kind of experiment and see what works for you. This is definitely not necessarily a perfect science. Then you're going to want to think of affirming thoughts that combat the emotion that you are making. So if mine's grief, so some dark thoughts of the feeling of loss is, well, let's not focus on that. Let's think about some positive. So one thing I like to tell myself is, I am not broken. Another positive affirmation thought that can combat grief is kind of similar along the lines of that I am not broken, I am whole. Another thing that you might not feel in the throes of trauma, but you can maybe years later, like now, for me is I know I am loved. I am strong. Or even, it doesn't have to be an I am statement, it could be I love. It's important to have that in there to be able to know who you love and how you love. You could even put names of people that love you and supported you either during that time or after that time, just to remember the things that have combated your feelings of grief and loss. What are the things that maybe you felt that you lost? The feeling of innocence, maybe? I don't know. I am not a villain. I know it's silly, but if you follow my story at all, then you'll understand why I put that in there. Okay, so those are good examples of combating positive, not optimistic, just positive, affirming thoughts that combat the feelings of grief. So once you've got your paper in there, you take your water and you eyeball it. I'm gonna say you want to have a pretty good amount of water, and honestly, it's not bad to have more water than you think you need. Make sure it's nice and tight. And then plug your ears. Blend it into a pulp. I'm not going to go all the way because I already have some. I wanted to make this as quickly as possible, this video. So I have this already pre-done pulp. This is kind of what you're going to want to aim for right here. Just nice and blended and kind of gross feeling. You take your water and you try to get out as much as you possibly can. Get out there. Okay. And you just kind of, let's see if I can, you push it out. You push, smush. If you don't like that feeling, you can use a spoon, the back of the spoon. I don't, maybe it's because of my experience of being a pre-K teacher. I can handle weird textures. That sounds weird. Anyway, you smush it out. Try to get as much water, but not all of the water, but try to make sure that it turns into a nice clump of weird paper ball. Okay. So you want it to be mildly damp, but you don't want it to be wet, like soaking wet. You definitely don't want it to be dripping anymore. But you also want it to be workable. These are things that, you just kind of have to eyeball it and figure out what works for you. So this is kind of this little clump of paper, wet paper that I have here. So then, this is the part that is optional, but I find that it works very nicely. Get some more water out. You put it inside a bowl, and you take a spoonful of spackle. Spackle is very easy to find and not very expensive at all. I don't know, maybe $10. I don't remember how much I spent for this because I bought it a while ago. You take a spoonful and you essentially mix it in until it looks kind of like this paste right here that I've already made. Then you have a template. I bought this at some sort of party store. You can get it like at Party City and things like that. Just a basic template mask of the size. I'm doing a whole face, but you can do like half masks and whatever you want. And you take your paste and you just cover the mask like that. And you form it into whatever shape of emotion that you are trying to do. So this takes me a while, so I'm not going to let you sit and watch it, but essentially you're going to cover it and you're going to try to aim to shape it into the emotion that you're working with. As you can see, this is the one I made previously. I made the eyebrows go down, the mouth in a grimace, the eyes going down. Obviously, he's not particularly happy. Why is my demon is a he? I don't know. I'm a feminist. I guess that's just my way. All right. I hope you enjoyed that, and good luck with your mask making.